Friends, what will happen if a person just captures the accused of the terrible events that have happened in the past through his imagination and completely changes those events in the future? But what is even more surprising is that the person who is saving everyone's life through his imagination has already died 2 months ago. Then how can people be saved? We are going to see something similar inside our story today.
A man believing himself to be Captain Stevens Coulter. He wakes up at 7:40 a.m. on a computer train to Chicago, but gets very upset because he does not know how he himself got on this train. Because he believes that he should be in Afghanistan for his job as a military helicopter pilot. But apart from this, Captain Stevens Coulter is sitting in front of a woman who addresses him as Teacher Sean Fantas. But Stevens tells him that he is not Sean France, nor does he recognize the woman. 8 minutes after Captain Stevens wakes up, a big bomb explodes on that train in which no Stevens and Christina, as well as all the train migrants, are killed. Later, Captain Stevens wakes up in a capsule and finds himself trapped there. And then through the video link, Captain Colin Goodwin explains to Captain Stevens that she is actually Captain Steven, a respected helicopter pilot who is now on a mission to find a bomb maker who fitted a train to a bomb that killed all the people. And now Captain Stevens' consciousness has been put into Sean Francis's body. But in 8 minutes, he has to find the bomber by traveling time in the train accident incident in past and tell Goodwin all the reports. Captain Stevens has no memory of how he got involved in the source code project. His last memory is of flying in a mission in Afghanistan facing enemy fire. Dr. Rutledge, the creator of this source code, told him that he really can't change the past to save any traveler. But it has to gather information that can be used to change the future and prevent a future attack. After this, Stevens is repeatedly sent to the source code of the train, and every time the same incidents happen with him. Such as Christina in front of you, checking TT's ticket, etc. And in the meantime, Stevens also keeps looking for the terrorist until the bomb that destroyed the train explodes. And Stevens, who is sitting in his body along with France, does not die. And every time the bomb explodes, Stevens comes into that capsule and continues to fail in his mission, but step by step also succeeds in gathering information about completing his mission. Because Stevens had resolved to fulfill his mission, and, if possible, to save Christina and the people on the train. Goodwin sends Stevens back to the source code. Then Stevens, who is in Francis's body, asks Christina to gather information about herself, saying that Captain Stevens is a friend of mine who has been missing since the Afghan War, and then Christina tells him that Captain Stevens died 2 months before the Afghanistan War. It has been done. Captain Steven is shocked to hear about his own death, because he does not understand how he is able to find himself alive if he is dead. Then Steven asks Goodwin and Rutledge about the truth of his death. At first, Goodwin is very reluctant to tell him this truth and forces him to complete the mission every time. But when Steven insists, Goodwin tells that you are dead, because you were shot at by enemies from the war, and then later your destroyed body was taken over by the air service. And then Dr. Rutledge and I joined you in the source code mission, because even though Captain Stevens' entire body is dead, a little part of the brain is still alive, which has been kept safe with one half of it. After hearing all this, Steven is very hurt. He tells Goodwin to kill himself so that he does not suffer. Goodwin agrees. But after the mission is complete, and then Goodwin sends Captain Steven to the source code, and then after all the efforts, Steven finds out that all this was done by an eccentric psychopathic American young man named Derek Frost, the bombing bomber in the train, because he wants to destroy this whole world and establish another new world because he feels that today's world is hell. Then later, Steven tells Goodwin and Dr. Rutledge about Derek Frost. And the mission is also completed because the person who did the bomb blast has been found, as Steven talked about erasing the remaining memory of his mind, which Rutledge also accepted. But even after the mission is complete, Rutledge refuses to keep his promise, so that he can use Steven in the upcoming mission. However, Steven persuades Goodwin to send him one more source code, so that he can stop the bomb blast of the train, due to which Christina and the rest of the train passengers can also be saved. But Goodwin expresses her objection to this because she believes that Steven cannot save the lives of those people even after doing anything. But Goodwin still agrees to Steven's words to honor him, and sends Steven to the source code, but without telling Rutledge. After going back to the source code, Captain Steven defuses the bomb placed in the train. and very easily traps Derek Frost with a handcuff. And then later, Steven and Christina kiss in the last second of 8 minutes. But here Goodwin already turns off the connection of the box in which half of his body was kept at the request of Captain Steven. But here Steven is surprised because his brain consciousness still remains in Sean Frontis's body, and then he is able to get out of the train safely with Christina, and he also saves the rest of the passengers. Now, in the alternate universe, Goodwin receives an email from Captain Steven stating that the source code can change past events because Christina and the rest of the passengers had already been killed, but all of them have been rescued alive in the past through the source code, because they are now alive in real life too. The story ends with Steven taking Frontis's place and living with Christina.